When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Easy to say, and yet when we help each other, we find we can overcome the challenges. Today on Saving America's Pets, we are going to get some practical tips to help shelters overcome their overcapacity challenges with big dogs. Hi, I'm Holly Sizemore, Chief Mission Officer for Best Friends Animal Society, and this is Rose. How you doing, Rose? My fabulous co-host, who, if you think she is cute, she'd love for you to hit like and subscribe so you can continue to hear from our amazing guests. The summer of 2022 has hit a lot of shelters like a ton of bricks. We all anticipate the influx of kittens every year, but this year, the rise in dog intake surprised many, and along with staffing shortages, left many shelters reeling. Today, we are going to hear from Kristin Hassen, Director of Human Animal Support Services. Kristin recently gave a great presentation at the Best Friends National Conference, and I wanted to share some of her practical and even some easy ways to help combat the influx of big dogs. Welcome, Kristin. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, let's talk big dogs. You did this amazing session at the Best Friends National Conference on big dogs. Why are big dogs an issue in shelters right now?
Well, big dogs, for cats, we have community cat programs and we have solutions. We just have to do them. And with big dogs, it feels a little bit more complicated. Big dogs are struggling in shelters right now for a variety of factors. Some of those are within our control, but some of those, like inability for owners to find housing for them and their pets, are outside of our control. And so what we're seeing is a lot of big dogs hanging around shelters longer, and shelter workers and professionals really getting anxious about what's going to happen and feeling a little bit hopeless. So my session was all about how we don't actually have to be hopeless in this moment. We just have to do a few things differently.
Like what?
So there's three big ones. One is really letting go finally of this idea that there are those of us that are helpers, those of us that are savers, and those of us who need helping or need saved. And this idea has been a longstanding norm in our profession. And a lot of us got into this so that we could save pets. But we're in this moment now where any of us at any point could become the people that need help, the people that, have pets that need saving. And so really fundamentally interrogating that barrier within yourself and changing your approach so that everyone in the community is part of the solution and everyone is seen as a potential helper and potentially someone that needs help. And just by doing that, that can really change a lot of what's happening in the organization and get more big dogs home and keep them home. One other thing that we talked about is saying yes. If I learned anything over the last decade, it's that because there is inherent risk, particularly when it comes to medium and large dogs, there's a tendency to say no first. And when we do that, when we close the doors, when we close off options, we are closing off life-saving outcomes for dogs. And to really recognize that and to make yes our default when it comes to trying new programs, getting that pet into adoptive home, and really make no something we say when there's a darn good reason to say no. And we've considered all the options. Changing our thinking on those two things alone can go a long way to helping big dogs right now.
I remember you talking about mapping intake and outcome. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things shelters can do, there tends to be people get kind of scared of data, and there's so much you can look at. But one of the metrics that can be really helpful and easy to look at is to see how much are your intakes mapping over your outcomes. In a community where that's really embracing everyone as a helper, what we tend to see is that the intakes roughly match the outcomes. The people that bring in pets are also the people that take home pets. And that's actually a good thing, although I don't know that we've always understood it that way. And so looking at how much are the people in those high intake areas actually able to access the services where they could take home pets, they could foster, they could adopt, they could volunteer. And if you don't see overlap in those two areas, that's something you can address immediately by removing barriers and making it easier for people to engage and making them more welcome.
What about transparency? Where does that play in?
So I realize as I'm saying all this, it can be easy for an exhausted shelter leader just to be like, yeah. But these things really have outcomes related to them. So these are actual things we can do in this moment, as is being transparent. One of the things we've seen this summer, you can plug in virtually any city, county, town, and you can see that they have been issuing pleas. We need help, we're full. But we also see kind of a limit on what they're telling the public. And for the public, they don't really understand the implications of a full shelter, but they do understand when you take a cell phone and you walk through that shelter and you show them every big dog that's waiting for them to come adopt. And you tell them all they have to do is show up, and that same day they can take a pet home. So when we talk about transparency, it's not enough just to tell the truth. It's really telling a story that tugs at the heartstrings of people who can help. And that doesn't have to be a tragic story, but it does have to be tied to this idea that, and this is one of the other things we covered, is that when it comes to big dogs, we have to ask for help every single day, not once a month, not once a week, every day. And then we have to make it incredibly easy for people to help. Like, as easy as it is to buy something on Amazon, it has to be to help a shelter dog. And so that means people can come in and start volunteering the same day. It means that somebody can show up and take home a foster dog that day. And to a lot of orgs, that still sounds like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But people are doing it all over the country and having amazing results. So just being brave and really realistically measuring risk versus reward. It is a way that you can try things. And if you see that the risk is too great, you can pull back and do something different. But what is happening in this moment, I think organizations are just, there's so much to be thinking about. That with big dogs, we can't stop innovating. We can't stop trying new things and communicating in new ways with our community and being really transparent. If you've got 5 staff that day and you've got 200 dogs that need help, saying, look, we're in this situation. We've got all these dogs and a lot of them want to come home with you today. Here's how you can help make that happen. That's what we mean by transparency. It's not just the doomsday news or the happy fluffy news. It's really actionable calls for help that make it easy for anyone to assist.
What about people saying, well, people get tired of hearing the urgency every day? What advice would you have for them?
Absolutely true. I think we're all tired of all the news right now. But people are also in this moment feeling like they want to do something to help. And so those calls for urgency are realistic, those calls for help, but we also have to remember that people want to have fun. So there's all kinds of ways to engage the public for help that doesn't feel like that broken record. For instance, one of the things we're advocating that works really well is a midnight muttness adoption event, where you invite the public from 7 to midnight to come adopt. And what you'll see is you'll get an entirely new group of adopters. You may get hundreds of dogs out, and you can make it a party. When we did it at my last shelter, we had food trucks, and we also had like a kids' play station, and it was just it was like a big celebration of big dogs in particular. So there's ways to say we're in this situation, but we're going to make it really awesome and fun for you to help. And that is work. But the good news is that's also work that can be done by volunteers. That isn't something that has to always be in the burden of the shelter. And it goes back to that saying yes thing. If shelters right now, when it comes to big dogs, can just say, hey, you giant volunteer crew, how can we do something really exciting that's going to get people here and then actually make that possible? That's the work that is working to increase big dog outcomes.
For some shelter leaders who are so overwhelmed and may think, I don't have time to slow down enough to even plan a adoption event, what would you say to them?
That is absolutely the reality for so many folks that we are trying to help now, is that every day they're just trying to not euthanize for space. And I would say that there's no easy answer, but that doing the same thing over and over again definitely isn't the answer. And so for some organizations, what they can do right now is to go find out, okay, how many big dogs are coming in a day as stray or lost? What happens if we just ask people, not tell them, but ask them to hold those dogs for 1, 2, or 3 days? And what we're finding when we actually go to those intake lobbies, we just sent some of our folks to intake lobbies. What we found is 37% of the people who were standing there with an animal in their hand, when asked if they would take that pet back home and try to get it home, they said absolutely yes. So some of this is just us asking for help and making it really easy. And then the other thing that we noticed for people that feel like they have no time, look at what your website's communicating. This piece has really been striking to me. We couldn't find one website that just started off by thanking people, saying we're in this really tough spot and you can help us. We couldn't find any websites that said that, but we know that if we just start out with a message that's like, thank you so much for trying to help a pet, here's what we're asking right now and here's why. Little changes like that can go a really long way, even if you don't have time to do additive services.
Great advice. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I think that there's both an acknowledgement that for big dogs and shelters, this feels like a crisis moment. So many folks are just struggling, where are we going to put dogs? And I think that the answer in this moment is both new and old. Some of the things that we've always done, like offsite adoption events and promotions and things like that, those really are working. Some of the new things we're doing to keep big dogs in homes, those are really working, but it isn't hopeless. This is going to be a hard rest of the summer. It will get easier in fall, and it is going to get better. It is going to level off. This just, for many reasons, is a harder than usual summer. So I think the message is like not to give up and not to lose hope, because there's so much you can do. And if you don't know that, you can reach out to your Best Friends Network representative or reach out to someone in our organization, Human Animal Support Services, and just get some advice on what could we do differently. There's always someone waiting to help you. And I think people aren't alone right now. We're all in this together.
I love that.
Can I say one more thing? The other cool thing we learned is that 57% of the people in the lobby had not actually done anything other than bring the animal to the shelter because they thought that was the thing we wanted them to do. And when we said, hey, you could post this animal on social media, get a microchip scanner, they were like, absolutely, 57% of them. So there's so much hope there if we just ask people for help and make it easy. So I'm hopeful and I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
I love it. The power of the ask. Thank you so much, Kristen. Take care.
Thank you.
For more information on how to help big dogs and other homeless pets, check out the Haas website and the Best Friends Network partner website. We'll put a link to both in the description. You'll find more great tips there and lots of resources to help save them all.